Wasn't actually planning on filming today. It's not the correct thread bolt. This coolant sensor is now literally on the bulkhead. Hopefully it'll be all right. It's a right mess. Feels like it's a bit cross-threaded. Hopefully that'll be all right. But there is something quite positive that happened yesterday to do with Maud. Definitely a vibration coming through the chassis. When I took the spark plugs out to give them a clean, I've dropped one of them. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes and today I'm around the garage with Esther, my ST170 powered Mk1 Escort. Now I wasn't actually planning on filming today, but I do plan to get this car back on the road in this video. Alright, so the engine and gearbox are now fully bolted in. I've made sure that they're lined up nicely. I've made sure that the engine is level this way, and I've now got the correct bolt. I mean, it's not the correct thread bolt, it's the correct thread bolt for the thread that I created last time I was around here. M12 by 1.5, so yeah, that's now holding the cross member nice and securely. I did also buy a full set of the normal length cross member bolts to replace the other three. Bit annoyed that those three are silver and this one is black, and they're also a different size hex on them, but yeah, the cross member is now securely bolted in and I didn't need to put any holes in the inner wing or anything like that. So yeah, happy days. And as I say, it is now lined up level this way, and I've made sure that the gearbox is level, you know, it's sort of in the middle of the tunnel. So that's all sweet. Now I've also been cracking on with a load of other little bits. You know, I've hooked up the fuel lines, hooked up the oil breathers. I've been cleaning some of the areas in the engine bay that are going to be a bit harder to get to when everything's bolted in, you know, under the battery tray and whatnot, giving the front of the engine a bit of a clean, because yeah, it's a right mess because this engine was leaking oil before. I've hooked up all the electrics, alternator, coil pack, crank sensor, coolant sensor. It's worth noting that this coolant sensor is now literally on the bulkhead. The engine is now a bit further back than it was before, and because I'm not using spacers in between the cross member and I'm not using washers in between the engine mounts, yeah, the engine's sitting in a different position than it was before. Yeah, but I'm hoping that'll be all right. I did sort of try and, you know, whack the bulkhead while this was out the way, but yeah, I wasn't really able to move it much, to be honest. But yeah, I'll keep an eye on that coolant sensor loom and hopefully it'll be all right. But yeah, I've put some fresh heat protection on some of these wires, put the slave cylinder for the clutch onto the new bell housing. It's worth noting that this front bolt for the slave cylinder feels like it's a bit cross-threaded, so I didn't want to risk it and make it slip, so I've made sure the back one's really tight, and this one feels like if I give it another nip it will sort of cross-thread and slip, so hopefully that'll be all right. As you can see, I've got the starter motor bolted on and all wired up. And yeah, basically, I've just been taking care of all the little annoying bits and slowly but surely getting everything ready for the first startup. Although, if I'm honest, I have already started up today. And obviously, before I could do that, I needed to fill the engine up with oil. I've also filled the gearbox up with oil. This is the gearbox oil I've used. I noticed some people recommending it online. The main thing is that it's 75W90, and probably more importantly, it's GL4 and not GL5. And one thing I did differently this time is I actually filled it up through the shifter turret. Obviously this shifter was removed, and yeah, I was able to pour the oil in through there and just do it until it comes out of the fill plug, which is normally where you would put the oil in. But yeah, much easier to fill it in from here than doing it from underneath with that big syringe thing. Yeah, really annoying. So yeah, still quite a long way to go before I can actually drive the car again. Obviously still need to hook up the exhaust manifold, put the radiator back in and whatnot, give the top bit of the engine bay a clean. In fact, the whole car is now filthy. But yeah, really glad that it's coming together, and as I say, I have already run it and tested the clutch and it works sweet. Now, one thing I did do before I fired it up properly for the first time is I turned it over on the starter motor with the fuses in the fuel pump and ECU relays are removed, and that means that you can check if you get oil pressure before you actually put those fuses back in and then fire it up. Because you don't want the engine firing up without any oil pressure for obvious reasons. Don't really want to get in because I'm filthy, but ridiculously loud. But yeah, the clutch works, so I'm confident now to put the rest of the car back together, and next time I'm around here, and yeah, should be able to get it on the road. My beautiful girlfriend Kat is round here, by the way. How rude of me not to introduce her. But yeah, I'm done round here today. I didn't want to come around here for too long, and as I say, I wasn't actually planning on filming today, but I'm glad that it looks like Esther will be back on the road the next time I come round here, and that will be included in this video, so I'll see you in a sec. Hello, into a new day, and as you would have just seen, I've been putting Esther back together, and I have already taken her for a little shakedown run, and all seems good. Now this car is absolutely filthy. You can see the top of the engine bay is filthy, the outside of the car is filthy, inside is filthy, got dirt on the seats and it needs a hoover out. And yeah, I will be taking care of cleaning this car up over the next couple of days, because this weekend is the Chelsea cruise and I really want to take Esther down there. I've missed the last 2 or 3 just because I've been too busy. So yeah, can't miss another summertime Chelsea cruise. And it's actually just over a week until I'm supposed to take this car to Northern Ireland for the Summit show and run. And as you'll know if you've been watching my videos, I've had a bit of bad luck with regards to getting Esther ready for major shows this year. But yeah, I really hope she is ready for the Northern Ireland adventure. Now there is a fair few jobs that I want to do on Esther before I take her to Northern Ireland next week. So yeah, the next week or so is definitely going to be busy. But if I get her ready, then it'll all be worthwhile. Now I do have a little bit of an update on Maud, my Mk1 Escort. Today I went to my favourite local tyre shop, Southall Discount Tyres, and got her a brand new set of Mk1 NS2R semi-slicks for the back. Always an awesome service by Southall Discount Tyres. But there is something else quite positive that happened yesterday to do with Maud. Right now my focus is getting this car ready for the Northern Ireland trip. Now I do want to take her for a bit of a longer shakedown run, so I'm going to hook up the cameras and take you guys with me this time. And I think I'm going to throw some rad flush in her rad. There's only water in there at the moment, so yeah, give the coolant system a decent flush, and then we can top it up later with proper coolant. The good thing about these caps, you can release the pressure. It's quite a while since I took her for a run, but yeah, I did release the pressure. Hopefully means you don't get loads of boiling water over your face. Let it run for a bit with the radiator cap off, hopefully it'll burp out any air. Yeah, just pack up a bit around here and then we'll hit the road. Alright, so on the road for the first proper drive since I put this other gearbox and clutch in. One thing I always forget and then remind myself is how much quicker this is than Maud. Only another, what, 25 horsepower, but body shell's a lot lighter than Maud. Now what I can tell you is there is definitely a vibration coming through the chassis. and it's not like it was before. You know, the engine now revs up nice and smoothly, whereas it didn't before, and we now know that's because the clutch wasn't balanced due to the fact there was a massive chunk missing out of it. But yeah, there's definitely a vibration still coming through the chassis, but the gearbox mount now has less rubber in it than it had before. And as I've already mentioned, I am going to be rethinking the gearbox mount, and I've already bought some materials to do that. So yeah, that's one thing I'm definitely going to be looking to do before I take this to Northern Ireland. The clutch, it feels like the biting point is too high. Now, that might be because I was used to the old pedal box with a different size master cylinder. Also, I'm used to Maud's clutch, which is a cable clutch, and the biting point on her is definitely lower. It's almost as if it's so high that you'd worry that the clutch would slip, but the clutch doesn't slip at all. So I think it is just due to the different master cylinder size. Yeah, the throw of the clutch is, you know, very short, so it's more like a switch. Well, maybe that's to do with the paddle clutch, because obviously this car didn't have a paddle clutch in it before, and now it does. But yeah, it doesn't slip at all, so it's nothing to worry about. Just something I need to get used to. The brakes are so much better now than they were before, which I kind of already discovered when I drove it briefly before I changed the gearbox. But yeah, I'm just happy to have it back on the road. Now the weather is a bit iffy, and I don't normally like driving this car in bad weather, but she's so desperately in need of a wash, I don't think it's going to matter. Now, it's too early to talk about oil sump leaks and gearbox leaks, but so far so good. So fingers crossed it does remain leak free, because then I can get underneath and give the underneath of the car a proper clean, because you know this car is all painted underneath and stuff. And yeah, I just haven't been bothered to keep it clean under there because of the leaks. But I did wipe away some of the dirt on some of the areas the other day, and yeah, it's good to see that shiny paint again. Yeah, this car definitely needs an alignment, because I've taken away the spacers now, which were between the cross member and the chassis. Obviously the geometry is all over the place. But this car was actually never aligned properly. Yeah, I set it by eye years and years ago, and yeah, definitely want to get it properly aligned. There is quite a major job that I want to do on this car. I was meant to do it by now, but you know, with everything that's happened, I just haven't got round to it. It involves fitting some parts that are dream parts, to be honest. And once I fit those parts, it'll need aligning again. So I need to definitely make sure I'm not going to fit those before I go to Northern Ireland, which I'm probably not, to be honest. And then go and get this car aligned before Northern Ireland. Or if I do decide to fit those parts, fit those first and then get it aligned. Definitely need to get some fuel in this old girl. Alright, just chuck some fuel in the tank. Go for another little drive, and then I'm going to take her back to her garage. One thing I didn't mention earlier, when I took the spark plugs out to give them a clean, I dropped one of them, and it actually landed on the end as well and closed it up. and I couldn't find my feeler gauges, so I just literally done it by eye with a screwdriver, tried to match it with one of the others. So yeah, definitely need to get a new spark plug, but I'm just going to get a full set. So she could potentially be holding back a little bit at the moment, but it still feels alright to me. Need to adjust the throttle cable, the revs are hanging on. Revs are really hanging on now. Oh, let's get her back to the garage. Alright, so the reason the revs were hanging on, I'm suspecting, is this adjustment here. Basically, this is a bit too tight. You don't want this to be the thing that's controlling how open your throttle is at idle. You want it to spring back nicely against the stop here. So when this is slightly too tight, it just means that, you know, the tension on the cable is holding the throttle open slightly more than you'd want. So yeah, I need to adjust this. Obviously, you need to adjust it not too much, because you still want to be able to get full throttle when you put your foot all the way down. But yeah, it's just a case of undoing this nut, and I've got to try and figure out whether I need to wind it out or in, and then just nip that back up. So just crack this 10mm nut off. I think it must be this way. In fact, I can watch this here. If I wind it in, it's closing the gap and therefore loosening it. So yeah, it needed to be wound in. If I wind it to there, that's just about on the stop. I've run out of adjustment here, so I might actually have to adjust it at the pedal end. So yeah, that's all the way in now. So I'll adjust it at the pedal end, and then that will be too loose in theory, and then I'll wind that back out to tension it back up again. I don't actually know if that moved, but I don't want to do it too much. Let's have a look. Yeah, it certainly seems loose now. If I wind this out, started moving that now, so we'll wind it back in. Just check we're getting full throttle. And yeah, that's definitely enough slack, so just do this nut back up here, and that will keep it set as it is. And yeah, that's how I like to do it, so that it's in the middle of the adjustment. Yeah, whereas before it was like right at the end. So now when we start it, the revs come down nicely. Now I do want to empty the coolant system out and flush it through, and then put coolant in. Just put the hose back on. Take the hose back off. Yeah, not quite as good as doing it with a hose, but better than nothing. I've actually just realised I've got no coolant, and I want to take Esther home today, so she's going to be getting filled back up with water anyway. But yeah, I'll do that a couple of times until the water's clear, pack up round here, and then hit the road. Alright, so made it home way later than planned. Had to stop twice on the way home because the revs were staying high. The first time I stopped, there was actually an AA man there who lent me a 10mm and an 8mm spanner, and I adjusted the throttle cable like I showed you earlier on in this video, and then went on my way, and then it happened again. And I stopped off on this roundabout not too far away from home, and it turned out that it was actually the throttle stop on the pedal box. So there's a little bolt basically that you can adjust, and it basically decides where the throttle pedal will spring back to. So yeah, that was probably what was causing my high revs all day today. I'm sure loads of you, like me, are happy that Esther is now back on the road, and the fact that she made it home this evening is what I would consider a successful shakedown. Now tomorrow I've got loads of editing to do, loads of running around to do. I need to order some parts, and yeah, loads of behind the scenes stuff, But for now, I'm going to end this video here. If you did think it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe if you're new to keep up to date with all my future uploads, and check the links in the description to my social media and my website. I'll also leave a link to my Patreon down there for any of you guys that want to jump on that. Massive, massive thanks to all my patrons. I really, really appreciate your support. I'll leave my email address in the description for anyone who wants to contact me. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.